Part 1 Unfinished. Long ago, beyond the bend of the great river Kwanji, there lay a village called Bataki. It was not marked on any map, and no traveler ever stumbled upon it by chance. The people of Bataki lived quietly, bound by traditions older than memory itself. They farmed, they fished, they prayed, but they also feared. For Bataki carried a curse. Every family told their children, when the night grows longer than the day, do not leave your hut. If you hear a knock at midnight, do not answer. And if you see the woman with the hollow eyes, never follow her. Few questioned these warnings, because those who did never returned. Waxing crescent moon one Harmattan season, the air grew colder than ever before. Dust covered the skies for weeks. The elders whispered that the moon was too pale, that it had turned its face away from Bataki. It began with the animals. Chickens stopped crowing. Goats refused to leave their pens. At night, the dogs barked into the darkness, but nothing was there. And then the sheep began to disappear, one by one, until the pastures stood empty. The villagers said the forest had taken them. Others claimed they had walked into the night on their own, following a sound only they could hear. But one night, a boy named Jailwa swore he saw the truth. He told his mother he had seen a woman standing by the river, holding a broken lamp. She had no eyes, only 2 black holes in her face. And beside her walked the missing sheep, bleating softly, as if enchanted. That was the night fear entered Bataki again. Waning crescent moon, just as the village trembled, a stranger arrived. His name was Daimeji, a traveler from the city, carrying a satchel filled with old books and a notebook tucked under his arm. His clothes were dusty from the road, his face shadowed by sleepless nights. He said he was writing about forgotten villages, lost traditions, and the myths no one dared to speak. But the elders did not trust him. They said Bataki was not a place for stories. It was a place where stories became real. Still, Daimeji wandered. He walked the forests. He sat by the river. He rode at night by the dim light of his lantern. And one evening, he found something the villagers feared most, an abandoned shrine deep in the woods, carved with the symbol of a sheep's head. The ground was fresh with hoofprints. New moon that night, Bataki did not sleep. A sound rose from the forest, the cry of a child. It echoed through the huts, soft at first, then louder, until every villager heard it. Mothers clutched their children. Men held their spears but did not move. Only Daimeji followed the sound. He said later that he saw her, the woman with the hollow eyes. She stood at the edge of the forest, her head bowed, her broken lamp swinging gently. The cry of the child came from her mouth, though her lips did not move. Behind her stood a flock of sheep, their eyes glowing silver, their bodies swaying as if bound by invisible strings. And then she turned toward him. He could not move. His legs froze, his voice died in his throat. She raised her hand, pointing at him, and in that moment, he felt the cold of the river inside his bones. But before she could step closer, the cock crowed, though no chickens remained in Bataki. She vanished. The sheep dissolved into mist. The forest fell silent. Waxing crescent moon the next morning, the elders gathered. They spoke of a story so old that even their grandfathers had whispered it in fear. Long ago, Bataki had betrayed the river spirits. A sacrifice was promised, but never given. The spirits, furious, cursed the village. They said they would take what was most precious, first the animals, then the children, and finally the souls of every living person. The sacred sheep had once been given to protect Bataki, but if the sheep vanished, the curse would awaken. And now, it had begun. First quarter moon, the third omen at sunset, the drums began to beat on their own. No hand struck them. From the shrine came a wind that smelled of rot. And in the distance, the villagers saw a figure walking, not toward Bataki, but around it, circling the huts again and again. It was the woman with the hollow eyes. Every child she passed began to cry in their sleep. Every fire she neared flickered out. And when she stopped, the night stretched longer, as if the sun itself refused to return. The villagers knew the curse was not waiting. It had already claimed them.
When the woman with the hollow eyes circled Bataki, the village grew restless. That night, no one slept. Mothers tied charms of cowrie shells to their children's wrists. Fathers sharpened machetes that could not cut spirits. The elders sat in silence, staring at the fire as though waiting for something they already knew was coming. And Daimji, the stranger, wrote feverishly by the light of his lantern. His hand shook, but his words poured out as though someone else was guiding his pen. Every word felt like it did not belong to him, yet he could not stop. When dawn came, the sun rose weak and pale, but Bataki had changed. The river that once sang outside the village now ran silent. The trees around the hut stood still, not a leaf moving, not a bird singing. The world itself seemed to hold its breath. The silent children on the second day, the children of Bataki, stopped speaking. One by one, their voices faded. At first, they whispered, then mouthed words without sound until finally they could only stare with wide, fearful eyes. The mothers wailed, the fathers grew angry. They begged the elders for answers. But the elders only said, the curse has begun its harvest. First the animals, then the children. Dainji tried to speak to them, but the children turned their heads away, all in the same motion, as though moved by a single hand. That night, he dreamt of walking into the forest. In his dream, he saw the children standing in rows, each holding a broken lamp, their eyes dark and hollow like the woman by the river. They lifted their hands to him and whispered without voices, "She is waiting." He woke drenched in sweat, and the sound of soft knocking at his door. The midnight knock the villagers had warned him, if you hear a knock at midnight, do not answer. But the knocking would not stop. 3 soft taps. Then silence. 3 more. Then silence. His lantern flickered, though no wind blew. His notebook lay open, and though his hand did not move, words began to appear on the page. Open the door. She has something to show you. Dainji gripped his satchel, trembling. He did not open the door, but in the morning he found something outside. Hoof prints leading into the forest. The council of elders, the elders gathered in the square. Their faces were carved with fear, their eyes hollow with sleeplessness. They spoke of a forbidden tale, one they had buried for generations. Bataki, they said, had once been asked for a sacrifice. Not of animals, not of crops, but of a child. The river spirits demanded it as payment for the village's survival, but the people had refused. They hid the child, giving instead a sacred sheep, hoping to deceive the spirits. The spirits accepted for a time, but the betrayal was never forgotten. And now, the woman with the hollow eyes had returned to claim what was denied, the disappearance. That evening, the first child vanished. Little Ojira, a boy no older than 6, was last seen standing near the river. His mother swore she heard him laughing, though no other children were near. By the time she reached the riverbank, only his footprints remained, ending at the water's edge. The villagers searched, but found nothing. No body, no clothes, no trace. When night fell, they heard him. His voice echoed through the forest, calling to his mother, "Mama, come and see the sheep," but everyone knew it was not him. Fear grew so heavy that even the elders began to lose hope. They said the curse had no end, that each night would bring another loss. Yet Dainji would not leave. He wrote and wrote, as if the story itself had trapped him. His notebook was now filled with words he could not remember writing, drawings of sheep with hollow eyes, maps of the forest that he had never walked. One night, as he stared at the pages, he realized the truth. The story was not his to write. The story was writing itself through him. And in the corner of the page, in handwriting not his own, a new sentence appeared. "Tomorrow, it will be you. The curse is deepening. The children are vanishing. The forest is watching. And Dainji is no longer just a traveler. He may be the chosen sacrifice. The story has not ended. It has only just begun."
Waning crescent moon, the river that stopped flowing on the 3rd night. Something strange happened. The great river Kwanji, lifeblood of Bataki, stopped flowing. Its surface lay still as glass, not a ripple, not a current. Fish floated lifeless, their eyes white, their mouths frozen open as if screaming. The villagers panicked. Without the river, their crops would fail, their animals would starve, and thirst would drive them mad. But the elders said quietly, "It is not the river that has died. It is the spirit within it that has gone to feed the curse." When Daimeji bent down to touch the water, His reflection did not look back at him. Instead, he saw the hollow-eyed woman standing behind him, her broken lamp swaying. He stumbled back in fear, but when he looked again, it was only the river. Waxing crescent moon, the night of silent drums that evening. Without warning, the village drums began to beat again. But this time, it was not the slow, steady rhythm of warnings. The beats were frantic, chaotic, as if unseen hands struck them with rage. No one dared go near the drum house. Yet the sound grew louder, echoing into the forest. And each time the drums thundered, one of the villagers would collapse, trembling, their eyes rolling back, their mouths whispering words in a language no one understood. By midnight, 12 people had fallen. Their bodies shook as though something inside them was trying to claw its way out. Then, silence. The drums stopped, and the 12 lay still, their mouths frozen in wide smiles that did not belong to them. New Moon Daimeji's notebook that night. Daimeji opened his notebook again. He no longer wrote willingly. His hand moved without his command, scratching lines into the pages with desperate speed. The words were not his, they belonged to something else. And as he turned the pages, he saw names. Names of villagers, names of children, names of those who had not yet vanished. At the very bottom of the page, one final name appeared, written in bold, dark strokes, Daimeji. His blood ran cold. He slammed the notebook shut, but the sound of scratching continued. The pen moved on its own, writing across the cover, across the table, across the floor. No matter how he tried to stop it, the words kept forming. Tomorrow, you will walk with her. Waning crescent moon, the return of the first child just before dawn. The villagers heard a sound by the river. A child was laughing. Mothers rushed out, hoping against hope. And there, at the water's edge, stood little Ojera, the boy who had vanished days before. His mother screamed with joy and ran to him. But the elders pulled her back. Look at his feet, they warned. Ojera's feet were wet, dripping with black water though the river no longer flowed. His eyes shone silver in the dim light. And when he opened his mouth, it was not a child's voice that came out, but the bleating of a sheep. The villagers fled in terror. His mother fainted, and Ojera smiled, a wide, hollow smile, before turning and walking slowly back into the forest. New Moon, the woman steps closer. That night, the woman with the hollow eyes returned. But this time, she did not circle the village. She stepped inside. The air grew cold. Every fire went out. The huts creaked as though bending beneath her presence. She walked slowly, dragging her broken lamp, the sound scraping like bones across stone. The villagers hid inside their huts, trembling, holding charms that no longer worked. She passed each doorway, pausing for a moment, listening to the heartbeat of those inside. And then she stopped at Daimeji's hut. The scratching in his notebook grew frantic. His lantern flickered. His breath froze in his chest. And slowly, the door began to creak open on its own. High voltage to be continued. The woman has entered Bataki. Daimeji is the next name written in the cursed book. The children's laughter now echoes from the forest every night. And the river is no longer water. It is becoming something else. The traveler's legs trembled, but curiosity gripped him harder than fear. Slowly, he pushed through the bushes, following the faint light ahead. The glow pulsed like the heartbeat of the forest itself, leading him deeper into the unknown. Then, the voices grew clearer. Not just whispers now, they were chanting. Old words, heavy with power, words no ordinary villager would know. He crouched low, heart racing, and peered through the tall grass. In the clearing before him stood a circle of old women, their faces hidden beneath cloths. They moved in rhythm around a mound of earth, each holding a burning calabash that dripped with something red. In the center of the mound was a shallow grave, and from it came the glow, as though something buried there was alive. The traveler's throat went dry. He wanted to run, yet his legs refused. Suddenly, one of the women stopped dancing. Slowly, she lifted her head and looked straight in his direction. Though her eyes were covered, he felt her gaze pierce him. "Come out, wanderer," her cracked voice echoed. "The forest does not hide you." The others froze, turning in unison. The chanting stopped. The glow dimmed, and silence swallowed the night. The traveler's breath hitched. He had two choices: step forward and reveal himself, or turn and flee into the darkness of the forest. But before he could decide, he felt a cold hand grip his shoulder from behind. He spun around and saw a boy, no older than 12, with pale eyes that glowed faintly. The boy's lips did not move, but a voice filled the traveler's head. "If you run, you will never leave this forest. If you stay, you will learn what no man should know." The night deepened as Daimeji walked cautiously through the forest path, his torchlight flickering against the tall trees. The silence was heavy, broken only by the distant hoot of an owl and the crunch of leaves under his feet. His heart raced, but his curiosity pushed him forward. Ahead, he saw a faint glow between the trees. As he drew closer, he realized it wasn't a fire. It was a circle of fireflies, glowing brighter than any he had ever seen. They moved in patterns, almost like they were guiding him. Daimeji stepped into the circle, and suddenly, the ground beneath him trembled. The forest around him shifted. The trees grew taller, their shadows stretching across the path like giant arms. From the darkness emerged a strange figure, half man, half beast, with glowing red eyes and a voice that rumbled like thunder. "You carry the book of stories," the creature growled, pointing at the notebook under Daimeji's arm. "Do you know what it holds? Do you know what dangers follow those who write the truth of the forgotten?" Daimeji swallowed hard, his fingers tightening around the notebook. He had thought his writings were just words, but now it seemed they carried a weight he never imagined. Before he could reply, the creature vanished, leaving behind only the echo of its voice. "Beware, traveler. The forest remembers." Daimeji stood frozen, his mind racing. What did the creature mean? Why was his notebook so important? He had set out to collect myths, but now it seemed he had stumbled into one. With trembling hands, he turned the next page of his notebook. To his horror, words were already written there, words he had not written himself. They told of his journey, step by step, including the warning he had just received. The story was writing itself. Daimeji's breath caught in his throat. The forest wasn't just watching him, it was recording him. The traveler's descent into terror. The forest grew darker as the young traveler pressed forward, his torch flickering as though afraid of what lay ahead. Every step felt heavier, as if the ground itself was trying to drag him down. Then he heard it, a whisper, not from behind him, not from the trees, but inside his head. Turn back, or join us forever." His heart pounded. He spun around, but there was no one. The whisper echoed like a chorus, as though 100 unseen voices spoke together. Suddenly, the air turned cold. A mist crawled across the path, wrapping itself around his ankles. He shivered and quickened his pace, but the forest seemed endless, trees twisting unnaturally, their branches bending like skeletal arms, pointing him deeper into the unknown. Then, in the distance, he saw a shadow, tall, thin, motionless. It stood in the middle of the path, waiting. The traveler froze. His torch sputtered, and in the dim light, he saw the figure's eyes, two hollow, glowing sockets, staring directly into him. "You should not have come," the figure hissed, its voice both near and far. Before he could move, the trees around him began to groan, bending inward, their bark splitting to reveal faces of travelers who had walked this same path and never returned. Their mouths moved soundlessly, screaming in eternal silence. Terrified, he stumbled backward, but the ground cracked open beneath him, revealing a pit of black water, bubbling with pale, ghostly hands reaching out. The figure stepped closer, its hollow eyes burning brighter. "The forest keeps what it claims." The traveler screamed, clutching his satchel, and ran blindly into the trees, branches tearing at his clothes, roots clawing at his legs. Behind him, the whispers rose into a deafening wail, the sound of countless souls trapped forever. But ahead, he saw something, a faint light, a hut glowing dimly in the darkness. Someone, or something, was waiting inside.
Under the pale moonlight, Obi steadied his breath as he stepped into the maestro's hut. The door creaked like a dying animal, announcing his arrival to whatever lay within. Inside, the air was thick clogged with smoke from herbs that smelled both sweet and rotten at the same time. Shadows danced on the mud walls, moving like spirits whispering in secret tongues. At the center of the hut, a figure sat hunched over a massive drum carved from dark wood. His head was bald, yet painted with white chalk symbols that glowed faintly in the firelight. His eyes snapped open as Obi entered pupils like black pits with no end. You have walked far, scholar, the maestro's voice rumbled, deep and layered, as though more than one being spoke through him. Do you seek knowledge or deliverance? Obai's heart raced. He tried to steady his voice. I seek truth. The river spirits, the curse, Nagachi. I must understand it all before it destroys what little remains. The maestro laughed softly, though the sound was more like bone rattling in a calabash. He rose slowly, towering over Obi, though he did not seem humanly tall. Truth has a price. Are you willing to pay it in blood, in memory, in sanity? Before Obi could answer, the hut's shadows thickened. They stretched from the corners, crawling like black snakes across the floor. From the drum came a deep thrum without the maestro's hands touching it. The sound vibrated through Obai's bones, unlocking something he had long buried images of his childhood, his mother's voice warning him never to follow strange drums at night, the face of a boy who vanished near his village river. The maestro extended a hand. His fingers were long and crooked, his nails sharp like claws. Step forward, and I shall show you what you seek. But know this, if you fail to withstand what you see, your soul will not return whole. Behind him, the smoke in the hut began to take form, a writhing mass of faces, crying and screaming, some human, some not. Obi could almost recognize them. Villagers, travelers, perhaps even the missing children whispered about in old tales. He hesitated, his mind torn between the terror clawing at his chest and the burning need to uncover the truth. And then outside the wind howled violently, and the sound of a woman's laughter, shrill and mocking, cut through the night. Nagachi. She was near. The maestro's eyes glowed brighter. She knows you are here. Decide quickly, scholar. Will you take my hand and face the true path, or be claimed by her before?